at work I speak in front of usually groups of 24 to 30 people on a daily basis, 2, 3, 4 times a day, and it doesn't faze me in the least. And I feel frozen right now with fear. But anyway, I'm honored that Hillary and Amanda asked me to speak tonight. And again, my name is Paula. I'm a family therapist over at Men's Addiction Treatment Center, High Point, and also in recovery. I'm here to talk about my son. My son's name was Curtis Lincoln Hendricks II. And I lost him in 2007. And sometimes so many times it feels like yesterday or 10 minutes ago. Grief is a many-layered, crazy thing, and it just comes in waves, comes and goes in waves. And you talk about the 5 stages of grief. I hear you every day. You go through all of them. One of the last things Curtis said to me, we were arguing because he wanted me to cash his check. And I got really scared because I knew what that meant. He had money. It was like in the evening, the banks were closed, and I said, no, I'm not going to cash a check. Come on, Ma, I said, Curtis, no, I'm not cashing your check. I'm not giving you cash. If you need something, I'll get it for you. I'll buy you cigarettes. I'll buy you food, but I'm not giving you cash. Ma, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to die. Those were the last words I ever heard him say. The very last words I heard him say to me. Don't worry, Ma, I'm not going to die. And the guilt and the pain and, what should I have done differently? I didn't spend enough time. I remember one time he told me I'm so bored. And I was so exhausted. I was working so much. It's always working. I was so exhausted. Why didn't I take more time? Was it because I was in active addiction when he was a young child? Was that it? The guilt and the shame and why did this have to happen? It's endless. It's endless. He was such a beautiful young person. He was my best friend. He always watched out for me. On Thanksgiving, my other children had plans to go other places, and he goes, Ma, what are you doing on Thanksgiving? And I said, well, everyone's going someplace, so I think I'm going to hit all the meetings, maybe do the soup kitchen or the shelters or something. I said, that's a nice thing to do on Thanksgiving. He said, oh no, he went around to the whole family and said, everyone's at Ma's house tomorrow. Cancel all your plans. He made everyone cancel their plans. He went out and bought this huge bag of apples, and because he loved my apple pies, and the crust of my pies, I always cut out the middle instead of a circle. I'd cut out a little heart and not put it on one side, and he'd always fight for that piece. The pie never got made because it was just a couple days before Thanksgiving that he left us. And my whole family sat at my house on Thanksgiving Day just looking at each other. I think we had baked beans or something, some scrambled eggs, I don't know, we had something. But when Curtis was, he was living with me for a while, off and on. He would come and stay with me, as an adult, and he was 26 when he left us. So he was staying with me for a while, and he came out I came down into the kitchen for my morning cup of coffee, and he goes, Ma, here, and he holds out his hand, and I said, he put a key in my hand, and I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm sorry, Ma, I relapsed, and I know I can't be around you. So here's the key. I promise I'll call you every day and let you know I'm okay. That's the kind of kid he was. You know, he knew he couldn't be around, but he was going to let me know he was okay, and he told the truth. He didn't steal from me, you know. I know there's always those yets out there, but that's who he was. That's who he was. I remember, you know, sitting, writing his obituary. I was, back in 2007, there were so many people the stigma was still so huge, and there was so many people in the closet. There was so many people not willing to talk about it. You never, ever saw in the obituaries that someone died fighting a battle of addiction. It was always died unexpectedly, you know. And I just couldn't have that. I was so sick and tired of it. And you can look in the past years. I think it was one of the first obituaries that said my son died fighting an excruciating battle with the beast of addiction, you know, at his wake. And there was people that came to his wake that I never met before. At the wake, you know, they're usually 4 to 7 or 4 to 8. It was going on 9:30, 10 o'clock, and there was still lines outside the door. Just people in recovery that were coming and saying thank you. I met him. I was in the courthouse one day, this young woman said, I was in the courthouse one day and I met your son. He didn't even know me, but he saw me standing there really scared. And he put his arms around me. He said, look, it's going to be okay. And it was. And I knew when he said it, it was going to be okay. This was the kind of things people were coming up and saying to me. He was just amazing. And the loss never goes away, and the grief never goes away. I was working in the field long before. I have several children afflicted with the disease of addiction as myself. And I was in the field for a long time before, and they used to come to some of the meetings with me, some of the open speaker meetings. They used to call it the donut meetings because this one gentleman used to bring in tons of donuts for everybody, and the kids would be running around. It was usually a Sunday when the meeting started later and families were welcome. And it was, so they knew about addiction, they knew about meetings, they knew about everything, but it didn't stop them. It didn't stop Curtis. It didn't stop. It didn't teach them not to pick up. You know, my experience didn't keep them from having their own experience in addiction. And it's so frustrating, you know, because now we see so many things at an early age, and we try and redirect our kids and redirect young people in prevention and try and teach them about addiction and where it's going to take them. It's definitely going to take them someplace bad. It's always someplace bad. But they have to just, it's up to every individual what they want to do with it. I left my profession. I'd been working at several different places, High Point, Gosnold. I managed a women's transitional house back when women were sent to Framingham, and instead of the Women's Addiction Treatment Center. And I was started working with the parole boards, getting women out of jail. They didn't belong in jail, they belonged in treatment, you know, so. And I loved what I was doing, but after I lost Curtis, the ground went out from underneath me. I just didn't feel like I had a voice anymore, like I didn't know what to do. I didn't even understand why cars were still driving up and down roads. It was like, what's everyone doing, you know? But I worked in my family's greenhouse for a year, and I put my hands in the dirt, and I just kept busy. And about a year later, I needed to get a real job again. I needed to go back to work, and I didn't know what to do. And I kept on getting these signs from High Point, you know, like I'd go on all the various Google things, you know, work, job. I can't even think of the names of them, but you know what I mean. And this High Point kept coming up, and I'm thinking, can I do it? Can I do it again? But there was just all these signs that made me want to give it a try again. So I did. I interviewed at High Point, and they made me do some role play because at Gosnell I was working as a counselor, and I had begun working with families. So I did. It was an interesting interview. You know, I've never heard a role play in an interview, but so it was pretty interesting. And so I got right into it. Yeah, Academy Award. And they said, I really want you to work with families, and I said I would love to. So they hired me. They had me come on board and put me on my 3-month probation period, and I went directly to my supervisor and I told her about my son Curtis. And this happened to be, lo and behold, the Men's Addiction Treatment Center. So here I am working in, you know, substance abuse and recovery with all men, and here's my son. You know, is that going to get in my way? Transference, counter-transference, this and that, all this stuff is going through my head. So I went to my supervisor and I said, I don't know if I can do this. I'd like to give it a try. And I told her my story, and I asked her to watch me, and we had a lot of supervision, like a couple times a week for, you know, the first year, I think. And it was great. It was great. It worked. I was able to do it. You know, I didn't look at these gentlemen and see my son or have feelings about my son and decide what they should be doing. I mean, it didn't happen that way. I was able to get right into neutral territory, and I started working with families and these gentlemen and their families, and absolutely just loved it. And you know, I get up every morning, and I know they tell you when you're in this field and you're licensed and, you know, professional, that, you know, you shouldn't talk to people about your personal identification and stuff like that, but I think sometimes there's a call for it, you know? I just really do. And it's not like I get up and tell my whole story because it'd probably make their hair curl. This little old lady getting up there. I think I'm the oldest one at High Point. No, seriously, I think I am. And, you know, Miss Press and everything get up. If I told them any of my stories, they'd be, you know, they really would. But, you know, sometimes I hear the despair, and I'm probably just going to go use again, or, you know, like that kind of a thing. And, you know, and like in so many of these beautiful gentlemen that walk in the doors, so broken, whew, and they've lost so many people. They've lost their best friend. I woke up, my girlfriend was dead next to me. I mean, I all day long, I hear these stories and whew, you just feel it. And I understand that pain. And I want to tell them that they can do it too. You know, like you don't have to pick up because you're in pain. Pain is part of being a human being. Pain is being human. Pain is part of life. And you have to learn how to feel all these things, feel all of it. Because if you don't feel it all, then you're stuffing it somewhere. You have to feel it. I get up every morning and I'm a few minutes late a lot. I do the best I can, but no matter what's going on, I have to say a little prayer. I have to meditate for a few minutes and say a prayer. My higher power is creator, my creator. And I talk to my boy, my Curtis, and I say, Curtis, how can I honor you today? And I hear his little wannabe gangster voice, get up, Ma, get going. Get up, Ma, get going, you know. And I get up and I get going. And it keeps me going, you know. And he inspires me to keep going in spite of the pain. Sometimes I'm driving home from work and Curtis was in the hospital for 4 days before we finally took him off the respirator in hopes that maybe there would be some brain activity, some miracle, something after his overdose. And there wasn't. But sometimes I'm rushing home and for a quick second I'm like, I gotta get to the hospital, and then oh my God, where did it come from? You know, like it doesn't ever leave you. It doesn't leave you, it comes and goes. People ask me to, I got kind of swarmed afterwards about grief groups. Let me tell you, I was so angry. A grief group was the last place I wanted to be at. This is me, okay? This is the way I felt. I didn't want to hear about anybody else's grief. I just wanted to envelop my boy and what I was feeling with him. And it's okay to feel that way if there's anyone out there that feels the same way. It's really okay not to jump into things like that. Give yourself as much time as you need, because I think it was close to 2 years before I finally went to a grief group. I think it was something Amanda brought me to, somewhere north of Boston. And it took 2 years for me to finally open up and hear other people's pain and share my own. And it began to become helpful. But it took me 2 years. I didn't want any part of any of that. So I get up and I honor my boy every single day. And I get going, and I see all these gentlemen coming in, and they're just amazing. They're amazing, and their families are so scared and so broken. They're scared to death. And I love working with them. I love pulling them into a room together. I pull together these family sessions where I pull the client and his family. And family doesn't have to be bio family. It can be anybody that supports you, physically, financially, emotionally, whatever, that person that you go to out there. And we bring them in and we talk about, the ongoing plan and what are you afraid of? What obstacles do you see? And I teach them, I help to educate them about the disease and about how not to take it personally. But a lot of family, he did this to me, he stole my this. No, he didn't. He didn't want to go in, he didn't want to be dope sick. Do you know what that feels like? And I let him know what it feels like. I tell them in detail what it feels like. And he was going to pawn it, put it right back, get himself straight, and he was going to get everything together again and then bring that back to you. That's what really was going on. And most of the time, that really is what's going on. And families open their eyes and they take a second look and they give their loved one another chance. And it's it just opens my heart to see, a better understanding. And I think it's just what we all need, and I just love doing it. I love being a part of opening people's hearts and letting them know what addiction really is. You know, that drug dealer that you're mad at, that you want to kill because, you know, he sold dope to your daughter or your son or your cousin or your husband or whatever. That dope dealer is probably just another person that's addicted, that's trying to sell something to get something for himself, so he's not dope sick or she's not. It's just like this big, insidious circle. It's a beast. It's a multi-layered beast of an illness, and if we could wipe out the judgment and get more knowledge of it and embrace each other, and addiction, the opposite of addiction is connection. I heard someone say that, and I say that a lot. The opposite of addiction is connection. We need to talk to each other. We need to hold each other up. We need more voices talking about that pain and letting people know what it feels like and know that we understand. And reach out and hold each other up through all of this. I can't thank you enough for asking me to speak and share part of my story and talk about my boy. Because he's with me here. He's here with us. Thank you so much.